So, without further ado, I would love to tell you about who we have on deck here to speak to you. Our next panel is with Byte. They're going to be revisiting Malcolm Gladwell's best-selling book, The Tipping Point, which if any of you haven't read, I highly recommend it. Really talks to you about how to grow and build your business. And I believe chapter 1 starts out with an interesting case study and look at hush puppies, the shoes, not the food. So great book, check it out. And in the meantime, get your appetite whet here a little bit with an expert panel from Byte. You'll learn from them how the 2020 pandemic that we've all been experiencing here has completely shifted e-commerce, consumer behavior, and of course, in their case, remote dentistry and the consumer experience in a way that reaches far beyond just simply selling straighter, whiter teeth. So hopefully you all can learn some great takeaways from the Byte team here to shift your business and predict what the best next thing and big thing is going to be. So here with us today, we have Sarah McDonald, who is the head of brand marketing at Byte. We also have Dr. John Marashi, who is the chief cosmetic dentist at Byte. And we also have Niraj Gunsar, who is the president of Byte. So we have an all-star panel with you here today to delve into all things dental.
Okay, thank you for, I guess, turning it over. I guess that was the pass off.
Absolutely.
I'm Rhett Power. I'm going to host this panel today. It's a delight to be with you here at e-commerce week in LA, brought to you by Hawke Media. Now, today's panel is how Byte kept consumers smiling through 2020, a tipping point case study. We're going to use Malcolm Gladwell's best-selling book to sort of go through how Byte has done what they've done, what they've accomplished. Now, it's great to be with you. Today, we're going to talk about how the 2020 pandemic shifted e-commerce and remote dentistry and the consumer experience in a way that reaches really far beyond simply selling straighter, whiter teeth. We're going to talk about how your business can predict and prepare for the future and the next big shift. We've already introduced our panel, so I'll skip that part, but let's get right into it. And Niraj, can you talk about Byte and kind of talk about the brand and why you joined Byte and tell the story a little bit?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Rhett. Thanks for having me. You know, at our core, Byte is really about changing people's lives by making the inaccessible both accessible and affordable. And so I think to really understand what Byte's impact on people are, it's to go through my story of why I joined Byte. So I had been a private equity venture capitalist for a long time, got into operations in an automotive consumer internet company. And then about 2 years ago, I was in the Byte offices being recruited to, to take the next step and run the company and elevate it to the next level. And I was in one of the founders' offices and I could hear, he left for a second, and I could hear a woman actually crying in our Byte advisory group. And as anybody diligencing a new company, I actually just went over there and tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "Hey, is everything okay?"
Right.
And Lily, who was the customer advisor, told me, "Oh, no, Niraj, don't worry about that. This is just another one of these incredible consumer journey stories," and it has me teared up. And then I could hear a woman on the other side also crying. And she gave me the story. And what had happened was this was a mother, and her daughter had tried to commit suicide twice. And the reason she tried to commit suicide was because she was being bullied in, I think it was late high school, about the way her teeth and her mouth looked. And before this, she could never afford any of the other treatments out there. In fact, there was no orthodontist in her county. Less than 40% of US counties actually have an orthodontist. But she had luckily discovered Byte. And, as I heard this story, it became really emotional to me. I actually have 2 young children as well. And then she really hit home with me. She said, "You know what, Niraj, Lily," she said, "Lily, my daughter is now on month 3 or month 4 of her treatment. And she's got her teeth straightened again. She's getting her it back." And then the one thing that really hit strong was she said, "I finally have my daughter back." And it was one of these just incredible moments where it resonated with me that this company is not just about being the #1 reviewed and #1 rated, direct to consumer aligner company. It's really about changing people's lives and giving them things that have not been accessible and putting them on a trajectory that they just weren't before. People don't realize, but people judge people by the way their teeth look. You don't get as many job interviews. A lot of this stuff happens subconsciously, and it happens in counties that just haven't had access to this. So very quickly after that, I realized that, this is a new journey that I want to go on. And it's a very large market. We're growing like crazy. We've done incredibly well, but we're also changing people's lives on the way to do it. So that's who we are. If you wanted to know our DNA, it's really about changing people's lives through their smiles. And we've been able to do that, at record pace this year.
Yeah, we've got to talk about the pace, because I think it's just remarkable. It's a remarkable story. So I want to break this down into kind of 3 parts today. I want to get everybody into the conversation. I want to break it into 3 parts, sort of based on Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. So the first part, we're going to talk about the law of the few, sort of to give a big sense of what we're going to talk about. But so I want to talk about how big trends, really start with small groups and in a very organic way. And you have to, I think, pay attention to small things. So I want to talk to Dr. Marashi, talk about teledentistry, because I think COVID has really changed medicine in general. And so I want to dig down into how it's changed dentistry and what's your view on that, and talk about that a little bit.
Great, Rhett, thanks so much for having us, and I'm excited to be here. So when we talk about teledentistry, you can really also incorporate it in telehealth services. And while that sounds modern and exciting, it's actually been around for a really long time, but people just never thought of it that way. Okay, let me give you some great examples.
Okay.
As long as there's been a telephone, there's been phone calls that have come in to doctors and dentists and healthcare workers on weekends and after hours. How about 911? That's even a form of it as well. And everyone who's on the other side of that telephone call is trying to do the following things. They're trying to assess what's going on and what do we need to do to stabilize this situation. But it's always been thought of in more of an emergent type of situation. Now, fast forward to modern times, and we have cell phones, and we have video chat features, and text, and email, and social media, and some of the most powerful communication tools in the history of humankind. And it's been harnessed now, and Byte has been on the leading edge of the curve to go ahead and implement it into telehealth services, or in our case, teledentistry, and provide a product and a service as nearest as not only affordable, but it's opened the door for so many more people to have access to care.
Do you think it's changed, but do you think COVID has changed the way we see medicine? Are we willing to maybe experience that sort of remote experience, that getting on a Zoom call like this and talking to your doctor about what's going on? I mean, do you think it's really opened up that opportunity?
Absolutely. And I want to clarify that, because it was already headed that way, and COVID has kind of been the catalyst for it, where now it's become more of the norm. And so if you think about it, when, most of the nation was, following stay-at-home and social distancing orders, but they still needed to accomplish several things, and as far as their health goes. And so now where certain people may have thought it was, unthinkable to do it via video, via, web chat, text, all the things that I've talked about. Now it's like, well, I don't have another option. And as more people started to do that, because that was the position that they were, kind of funneled into.
Right. What
everyone has realized is like, hey, this works. This is great. And when technology plays into it, you can have a speed of delivery of service and also an economy of scale. And so it opens up access to more people.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Raj, what's your, Sarah, I'm going to get you in. I want to get you in here in just a second. But Niraj, talk about the business angle here and sort of what you see happening during COVID and what's happened to your business.
Yeah, it's a great question, Rhett. So, I was listening to CNBC the other day, and I think it was the Peloton CEO or even the Zoom CEO was on, and they talked about trends that were happening prior to COVID and then the acceleration of these trends that has been magnified by about 5 years. So like Dr. Marashi was saying earlier, we were still growing. We were projecting to grow 400 or 500% year over year already from a customer demand and an interest perspective. I just think what's happened is that COVID and the shelter in place has accelerated everything by about 5 years. And so what we've seen is the concept in around teleorthodontics, teledentistry, the ability to do more and more stuff at home is really leapfrogged to everything else. And so we've been able to see that. And as long as you're able to provide the type of customer experience that's unparalleled today. Listen, I love Dr. Marashi, but not many people, raise their hand and say, I want to go visit the dentist today, right? But so if you have the ability to help Dr. Marashi and help other dentists and orthodontists out there through, a teledentistry platform or remote check-in platform, you're able to elevate the entire industry. And so I think the way we're looking at it is we're helping the industry innovate quicker than ever. And we're seeing that in the numbers, we're seeing that in customer demand. And I think the biggest thing we're seeing is dentists and orthodontists are starting to reach out, at scale to us and saying, hey, can we partner together to ride the rising tides of what you're doing on the teledentistry side. So I think that's kind of critical for everybody to understand that these types of experiences and these types of platforms are already growing. It's just really accelerated it for the future.
How does that work? How does the orthodontist join? Sort of what's that business model look like?
Yeah, so we've got two phases right now. First off, every single consumer that goes through our platform today, their treatment plan is signed off by a dentist or an orthodontist. It's licensed in their state, so it's very highly regulated from our side. So that's a really positive thing that we do today. But I think in the future, what we're really focusing on is, some customers, they're still having some hesitation when it comes to doing stuff at home. And what we want to do is we're talking to them already. Our unique visitors are up pretty dramatically. Why not offer them the solution that they're looking for? So we're able to push those customers into a local dentist or local orthodontist office. That's called Byte Pro. We're actually launching a beta version of that next week in Orange County, where customers in that area that don't want to get an impression kit at home, want to go visit an orthodontist or a dentist, get their teeth scanned, then you're kind of bringing a whole new underserved side of the country, which hasn't been seeing a dentist, hasn't been seeing an orthodontist, into spending more and more time and effort into oral care, which is really what we're focusing on. Improving oral care actually improves overall healthcare. And that's what our brand is able to do now in this pandemic at scale.
That's a great segue. Thank you for setting up Sarah, because that goes into the customer experience. And I think, Sarah, talk about what you guys are doing, what Byte is doing on the customer experience side, because I think it's really unique.
Yeah, so I mean, going back to pre-launch of Byte, when I first started thinking about the brand, I was met with the challenge of how do you take something that's super traditional, maybe not the most modern or cool, to be on social media? How do you show up to millennials? That was my first challenge. And naturally, I thought, okay, beautiful photo shoot. We're headquartered in LA and Santa Monica, beautiful smiles. I had this whole picture in my head. And we launched, and quickly we pivoted. We started to realize upon going on social media and speaking with our customers, even friends and family to begin with, how every single person had this very passionate and intimate relationship with their smile. So it was something that stood out very quickly. People immediately started talking about that career change they were going after, or they were getting married. Maybe they were single and looking, they wanted better selfies. I mean, we heard it all. And then similar to what Neeraj said, we heard so many stories around bullying, stories about, not being able to smile growing up or not being able to use their voice. And very quickly we realized, wow, that's very powerful. That's more powerful than I think any photo shoot we could take would be. And we quickly huddled internally and something else that stood out was the conversations I was having even on DMs with the customers. You know, it wasn't a one-time conversation. They were sharing their why, is what we call it. So why they're doing Byte. So maybe that wedding. And then they were following up with me and they were showing me photos of their fiance and of their rehearsal and how their smile was almost ready for wedding day. And it got to the point that I ended up reaching out to them and I'm like, how did your wedding go? So, you know, it was something that I realized was this customer journey. It wasn't just this one point sale. It wasn't just about, you know, that one photo, but it was really life changing. And so from there, we decided, okay, instead of thinking of what celebrity, you know, that has the most followers will be the face of Byte, really it's our customer, and our customers come in diverse voices, diverse faces, ages, and the best way that we could uplift those were to tap into our customers. That was met with the challenge of how do we now get people to talk about Byte and showcase their before photos on social media when that's the very thing that they're insecure about and not wanting to you know, talk about and not wanting to show. So we then went to influencers, and that's where we started to see the power of, okay, let's tap into each community and let's start to normalize, you know, bringing to life why you're doing this and kind of humanize that journey. And it kind of went and grew from there. So really looking at how do we connect with our customer? How do we uplift them, you know, cheer them on, hype them up throughout the entire journey and celebrate with them so that they can have that life-changing moment.
How did you get the influencer? So you use the influencers to sort of make it okay for people to sort of tell their story. Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, both. I think that we formed the relationships with our customers. So first and foremost, it came down to trust. It came down to them trusting us, you know, the people behind Byte, understanding that we had a licensed orthodontist and dentist, answering their questions in a timely fashion. You know, this is your mouth, this is your health. So we really had to hone in on that and understand this wasn't, you know, maybe your typical product, maybe a beauty, you know, lipstick or a piece of clothing, but this is something that does take a lot of trust. And so we wanted to make sure first and foremost, we showed up for them. How do we make sure that they have the best experience throughout their entire journey? And then with that, we did want to make it, I guess, feel more okay to show that on social media. So, you know, be proud of that, you know, show where you came from, talk about how maybe you didn't have, you know, the resources when you were younger and this is a huge moment and now that you're getting after that career, or, you know, you're able to stand up for yourself. So we really built those relationships, and then we brought influencers in that maybe they trusted or looked to, and had them help lead the way on, I'd say, social media, of making it kind of feel okay.
Yeah. I want to talk about the stickiness factor, and I want to sort of pivot a little bit. But what is that unique quality that in the minds of the consumer has made Byte sort of stick, and is changing and influencing their sort of behavior? Niraj, can you talk about Byte's stickiness factor and what that is? I mean, how did you guys break through the all the noise out there?
You know, yeah, go ahead, John.
Oh, sorry, that was for you, I think.
Yeah. No, it's great, right? You asked that question. We just talked about this morning. We had our quarterly meeting with the whole group on Zoom, and it's trust. So it truly is trust. You know, when you go through a $2,000 purchase that's healthcare related or teeth movement related, what matters the most for a consumer is to trust that brand. And you know, when you have a non-linear path to purchase, this is not like I watch an ad and then I go buy that product. That's not how this works. You end up doing a lot of research, right? You go visit review sites, you go talk to friends, you go talk to Dr. Marashi. You kind of get a 360 view of who you go look at influencers, like Sarah said. You look at Kerry Washington, who talks very publicly about Byte in many different angles about the access and affordability piece. And then you make your decision. And so I think throughout all of this, the one thing that is our true center is trust. And that trust relates in customer experience. And that trust ends up being the highest conversion in the industry, right? So from the point of somebody, you know, connecting with Byte to somebody converting, it all really does come down to trust. And, you know, we spent a lot of time this morning talking about this concept, how we can build more and more trust moving up the funnel, not just when you're ready to buy aligners, but giving people content about what they're thinking about. Hey, my child's bottom tooth is moving. Is there any content in and around that? Answering those questions, and then slowly moving into the concept of using aligners. And the other thing is if aligners aren't the right choice for you, we'll quickly advise you to go see a dentist. And there might be, a level of complexity that we can't solve. We're not going to just take those patients on. So that's how you build trust. When you don't focus on revenue and you focus on the customer experience, you end up winning the race, the long-term race. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, Dr. Marashi, how do you, I mean, this is a medical thing, and I want to get my head around, because I know people out there are sort of thinking, well, how do I know it would work for me? I'm just fascinated by how you've simplified and you get people to understand what this is. And when it seemed to me it's kind of complicated, but you simplified this in a real way that people can understand what you do. Talk about that. Talk about how you created this thing and how it. Does that make sense as a question?
Yes, absolutely. So, the unique perspective that I bring is that I'm in the trenches every day doing this with patients. And so, I have, a 20-year career now where I'm seeing people come in with the various types of concerns. And, what I've learned in private practice is two things. One, it's tangential to what Sarah and Neeraj have said, and I call it the BLTs of dentistry. It's that your patients have to believe you, like you, and trust you. And without those things, you're in big trouble. But there should also be an R that's on the end of it. So it'd be BLTR, and the R is results. And so if you can't get the results and the outcome of what you're promising, the trust factor is just going to go right out the window. So
Right.
We've been able to merge the two between, building the trust and the relationships, but also provide the outcome and the results that people are looking for. Now, you said, how do we take something that's so complex and distill it down so the average viewer or prospective Byte client can actually digest all of this material? And we've done that through our processes, because while Byte can treat a majority of people, it can't treat everybody. So we developed our system, and our filtering system works that it doesn't matter who you are, what your mouth looks like. Come to us, we'll figure out, and we'll let you know if you're a client or not. And for those who are, fantastic, they go through the system. But if you're not a candidate for doing it, and that's when we send you the impression kit and we do the workup. So this is all the stuff going on behind the scenes. Well, they get a refund. So they don't have to sit there and wonder if, like, oh gosh, if I spend this money, am I flushing it down the toilet? And maybe I am, maybe I'm not really sure. So that was actually built into our business model so that we could actually open the door for as many people, and that they could actually, take that first step and try this out and see where it goes, but not be penalized in the process. And I think that's also, established a huge trust factor. And from a company standpoint, in order for us to get the results, we're only motivated to treat the cases we can be successful with. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere as a company.
That's right. Yeah, that's great. That's really to the point I was trying to get to. Sarah, talk about a little bit more about the customer journey. Are there some stories, because you guys use real customers and their journeys, are there some that really stick out to you? And talk about that. Talk about some of those if you can.
Yeah, I would just say, when it comes to the customer experience, as Neeraj said, trust is the core of it. We want to make sure that, yes, we are making everyone's teeth nice, we're giving them confidence, but that they had an amazing and kind of trustworthy experience. So that touches every part of the business. We're thinking of, the account center and how they can reach out to their advisor every single day, no matter what time of night, and get a response within 24 hours. How we can put them in touch with their dentist or orthodontist if need be, if they have a question that they want to be able to ask directly to them. We think about what shows up in your mailbox. This is 100% done from home. So especially within quarantine times, that's something that we've really thought about. How, once again, do we have packaging? Do we have an unboxing? Do we have products that feel trustworthy, feel beautiful, and, you know, make you want to engage with it. We think about the quiz. So when you come in, what are the questions that we're asking you? And to the point of, if we can't accept you as a patient, how do we communicate that to you? Because that's something that's also a pretty sensitive conversation if we're saying, hey, you know, we don't think that we're the best option. So we really, you know, look for every single touch point and how do we engage with you? We have a Slack channel. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Slack, where we have testimonials coming in every single second pretty much of the day. And it's something that internally we kind of congratulate and cheer on, and we really get to know our patients. So we want to have that personal relationship with them. And then we also show up with what's going on in their lives. So quarantine, COVID, I'd say the last 6 months have been both personally and professionally the biggest challenge probably many of us have faced ever. And for us, it was, how do we talk about self-care? How do we acknowledge what's going on and connect with each patient and make sure, you know, that they're actually okay, first of all. You know, we don't want to shove emails down their throat to sell to them if they're going through something, you know, within COVID that they never expected. So we delivered on our promise, always staying authentic, always making the inaccessible accessible. And we actually took a step back, and through our Byte Cares Give Back arm. So we have a kind of a side arm of Byte where we aim to make the inaccessible even more accessible in underserved communities. We looked to what was going on and how we could help. So we said, hey, you know, we have 3D printers. We have the ability to actually make masks, to make face shields, to offer free teledentistry while everyone's doctor offices are shut down. We decided not to charge for those. We decided to actually even show other companies how to create those masks, because it wasn't about us at this point. It was about how can we show up for our community and deliver on that promise of, you know, making the world a better place. And it's something that we are very passionate about, and it only ended up helping, you know, our business as well. So we really have just tried to stay authentic within the customer service experience and deliver there.
So I know we've got just a few more minutes left, and so I wanted to get to a couple last questions, if time is permitted, please, from the controllers there in the control room, because I want to ask a couple more questions. How, Raj, how is what's next for the entire industry? I guess would be the big picture question.
You know, I really think what's next is this integration of offline and online, right? So I talked about it earlier about the concepts in and around Byte Pro. I think it's the integration of consumer and internet and healthcare in a way that elevates the entire industry. And I think the narrative that's been said before, I think before we really entered the market, was very much combative, right? These industries combat one another, but that's not really what's happening. I spent a lot of time trying to understand the differentiation between these markets and the underserved side of the market. You know, only 35 to 40% of the people see dentists every year already, you know, today. So we have the ability from an online perspective, from an at-home perspective, to bring that up and increase it. The only thing that's going to happen now is the industry is going to grow. And so I think the next evolution of this is really deep integration between these concepts in around at home and teledentistry and digital technologies and kind of the offline presence. And so we can help the entire industry, dentists like Dr. John Marashi and others, just continue to build and grow their practices and get more consumers in the world to help them smile and improve their oral care.
Guys, thank you so much. I have to wrap up. We've got the mayor on next. And so thank you. Please check out Byte. BYTE online if you are thinking about and need this kind of service. Thank you for being here with us at E-commerce Weekly LA from Hawke Media. You guys have a great day. Thank you, Byte, the team from Byte.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.